EMA committee meeting to order. Roll call, Kelly.
Mr. Hess, Mr. Kinzinger, Mr. Eckhoff,
Present.
Mr. Tholen, Ms. Hudson,
Present.
Mr. Wheeler.
I'm not a member of the committee.
Okay, we do not have a quorum.
No quorum. I do have public comment. The first one that I received is from Mr. Barnes.
Might not be for the input, so we can put that off.
Okay. The next one is Mr. Leeson.
I believe part of mine is also probably more of input, but I do have a question. I noticed an article in the paper that said that they were dividing personnel into different committees. When would the Emergency Services Committee be meeting? Do you know when that is?
That's right now.
That's now, so this
Yeah.
is it. I'm in the right place. Thank you.
The next one's Mr. Bay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Malumba Bay. I'm from Pembroke Township, and I'm not sure what, I'll have many comments, and I'm going to be a part of it. I'm here for the, it was something in the paper about the COVID relief funds and whatnot that we had. Right now, there's an issue in Pembroke where raw sewage is running down the street. So we need some emergency funds above policy, whatever it is. We need to get that done right away. With the health safety issues that's going on now with COVID and all this, it's right in front of people's house. I've talked with the supervisor, and we're on point with it, but we need some emergency help right now. And it goes beyond just waiting to get the policy issues and this thing. That we can do that later, but there's an issue right now. I have footage of it. It's running in the street. It's full in the ditches because the pumps are out. I know when I was township supervisor, I had replaced and bought 2 pumps, but that was like 14 years ago. But right now, it's out. And it's a real public issue, public safety issue now. So if we can, I will lend my talents to helping to get it done with the supervisor. So I employ the committee to, let's get busy on it right now so that we won't create another health issue.
Thank you, sir. Next one is Genova and Dennis.
Good morning. I am Genova Singleton, and I have some questions and some issues with regards to the COVID money that's coming into the township. I'm not quite sure exactly how it's been spent or how it's going to be, but I'd like to have some clarifications as to how, when, why, and where. Thank you.
My name is Dennis Clody. I have worked for many years with Genova on a variety of issues to try and improve several kinds of things in Pembroke and Hopkins Park. And we know that the grant funding is for COVID-19 related issues plus infrastructure things. And there are many kinds of infrastructure things that are relative to the entire area of Pembroke and also specific to the 2 businesses that Dr. Singleton owns herself. So we would like to know what committee members are going to be working on those 2 things that could help advise her along with my help. Also find out what do we need to put together in order to be able to get funds to help both the infrastructure for the entire area of Pembroke, and for the businesses that Dr. Singleton owns herself. So those are the reasons that we're both here. So first thing I guess we need to know is who is a committee member on the board that is in charge of, that will be in charge of helping with those kinds of issues.
I'm sorry, it's public comment. We can't answer questions to public comment. It's improper. The whole process is, you have 28 board members who are focused on that. So we won't answer questions. This process is what you're asking for.
Okay.
Yeah, this whole committee structure, but I can't delve into specifics during public comment.
Okay, so at
It's
some
improper.
point we would be working with individuals, or would we be working with the entire board?
That's what these committees are. This is the Public Safety Emergency Management Committee. And there's also a courts committee. There is a other committee that's a big basket of other requests and things that don't fit into that. So each one of these, which are going on all day today, from now until 4:30.
Long day.
It is a long day, and it's every other week, every 2 weeks. So
Do you have a list of times when those individual committee groups would be meeting?
yes, those are published. It's 48 hours in advance as Open Meetings Act, and that was published last week. So we can have, it was released through all the media outlets, and we'd be happy to get you a copy of that at some point.
Okay, we would appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is John Howard.
Good morning, my name is John Howard. I guess my questions would be for the next meeting, but my comment is, how was the subcommittee members selected? And then were any of the businesses in Hopkins Park, Pembroke Township, notified of what was going on this, how this COVID funding will be spent? But I suppose that could be directed in the next committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is public input. Mr. Barnes.
Yes, please.
Adjust this a little bit. Sorry. These are my days on stage. No, just kidding. So I don't know how much input you're looking for, details or just kind of an overview. So I'm a lifelong member resident of Kankakee County. I have lived for the past year in Manteno. 5.5 years prior to that, I lived just down the street from Mr. Wheeler at Cobb and Poplar. So I know, kind of the ins and outs of Kankakee County and what have you. In the past, I've worked with St. Mary's Hospital. I've worked with Dwayne Dean Behavioral Health, most recently Salvation Army. So, I'm very connected to the community. I'm currently working with Midwest Integrated Solutions, which is a security systems company based in Bradley. And so, let's see, on June 2nd, myself and the owner of the company, Chris Sorensen, met with Mayor Curtis about, he's looking for help on public safety, ways to address the violence, shootings, that type of thing. So what I did was I put together a presentation to him, and I have it prepared also for the Public Safety Committee in City of Kankakee, Kankakee County Board, to install video surveillance along with sound detection throughout the City of Kankakee, to utilize the funds, because we all know that until the violence issue is addressed and taken care of, all the money that's spent on Riverwalk and that type of thing is just kind of money wasted, because people are not going to come downtown if you've got shootings going on and that type of thing. It has to be addressed. And even though I live in Manteno, I still care about the City of Kankakee, because it is, really the hub of what goes on in Kankakee County. So that's my 2 cents. And if you want more details, obviously, or let me know when to come back, I'll keep coming back so we can, help move things along. So thanks.
Thank you, sir. Next, Mr. Leeson.
And if I could, I just want to mention that if there's something that is not public related safety, EMS, you know, public safety related or EMS, we'll make note of it for the appropriate committee that it should go to at this point. So we're just getting going, so everybody's got to kind of understand, you know, which committee they should be going to. But today is fine. So if you're prepared to talk about something else that's not public safety related, we'll make sure it gets to the right committee.
So we don't need to come back for like another meeting like?
Not today,
okay.
Not today, unless you want to.
Okay, got it.
Miss you, Bill. No, seriously, if you want to come back, that's fine, but or sit here all day.
Yeah.
I will be, but I don't expect you to be. But yeah, there's one of those things where we're just getting going and everybody can't understand the ins and the outs at the onset. So please, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yes, my name's Ed Leeson. I'm currently an instructor at the Kankakee Area Career Center in the Fire, Safety, Rescue, and EMS curriculum. The reason I'm here is we have a committee that's made up of area fire departments, the Mavis 7 fire department chiefs. We've had input from the 2 hospitals, St. Mary's and Riverside. Like I said, I'm here from the Kankakee Area Career Center, where we typically teach a basic emergency medical responder course to high school students from 18 different high schools in the area. Area fire departments have recognized a very difficult problem of getting EMTs and paramedics nowadays. Part of that is as a result of the COVID, but you can ask any fire chief in the area, and their big need is EMTs and paramedics. They're just not enough. They advertise, they put out tests, and people just aren't doing that. So what we initially attempted to do was start the process by having an emergency medical technician, or excuse me, an emergency medical responder course, which is pretty much the first level. And then the students would go to the colleges or local hospitals to get the next level, which is EMT. And once again, if they wanted to go further, they'd get their paramedic. Well, the chiefs are realizing that what they would like to see, instead of us offering a EMR, emergency medical responder course, is they would like to have an EMT course as well. Now that's a lot more involved, it takes a little bit more time. So this committee was formed between the hospitals, the fire chiefs, and the school to try and develop that program. We're in the process of developing that program with the hopes of implementing it next school year, which would be August of 2022. We're trying to gauge interest from the students who are in school right now, and that's part of the reason we're looking for the funding. We have to hire an instructor, obviously we have books, things like that. So part of the funding, well, all of the funding actually, would be spent on getting area students who are interested in becoming EMTs, paramedics, into that course, training them, and then having them be able to start working for local fire departments. That's the plan, and we're in the process right now of going through all of the details. So.
Okay. And just so you know, we're in the process of now getting the types of forms and documentation we'll need, because the county is now a grantor.
Right.
So we need grantees to fill out the type of paperwork that they will need to fill out. You know, GATA certifications and those types of things that, you know, answer the questions. If you ever had a grant denied, or you had to repay a grant for, you know, the financial systems to manage it, because ultimately we're accountable. So I'm just letting you know we have some steps and some forms that we have to do too.
And I understand that, and that's, I guess, my question is, so how do I get my name put on a list or find out when this is going to occur? I guess today is the policy issues, right?
Do we have his phone number on the
Yes.
We have your number, we'll reach back out, and if you would like to either be a participant, maybe somebody from your organization says you're our representative and they'll all feed information to you to come here, excuse me, maybe that's a good system. So it's really open door.
Okay.
We probably don't want them all here.
No, I understand that.
You know,
right.
that would be tough, but yeah, that might work.
All right, thank you very much.
Streamline it, thank you.
Thank you. We have no approval of the minutes. Committee mission and process, Mr. Wheeler.
Sure, thank you. As I mentioned, today was more, I want to say, perfunctory here. By the way, don't let me forget to give this to the gentleman in the back. I'll give him my copy of the meeting schedule. Basically, as we go through this process, I wanted to make sure that everybody really knew, you know, it's backwards. We're getting a pot of money and we're figuring out projects to spend the money on. Usually you have an idea of what you want to do and then you go find the money. And if you're successful, finding the money, then you obviously are accountable to the results of that grant. So we're trying to feel our way through in this situation, and make sure that we have the right kind of input, because some of us may have expertise in some areas and not in others. And as board members, we have to get the public's input from a subject matter expert side of things. Those people that really know what's going on, know their business, and are able to relate that back to us on what the gaps are as they stand today, what COVID exacerbated, and then really what wasn't working before, and that what you think might fix that continuum. Or it could be just as simple as one of the park districts, you know, nobody gave us any money, we weren't eligible for cures or cares, and we had to pay for our own PPE. So they may want to give us all their receipts and we reimburse them for their PPE expense, because park districts and fire protection districts weren't eligible. There was no bucket of money for those folks. So other people were. There was PPP and all these other programs that went out. So it was more like, how do we design this process to start with, well, what's the policy that we need to support? You know, because the law was written in such a manner that you really do, you have to respond to the pandemic. You have to kind of, you know, almost reinvent or reinvest, should I say, in your community and the infrastructure. But you also have businesses and workforces that need to be revitalized within different communities, and that manifests different ways, especially in Kankakee County, whereas we know there's a different set of issues in Hopkins Park than is going on in Bradley or Bourbonnais, and vice versa. And so not one size doesn't fit all. So we're gonna have to really think about this. And then to Mr. Barnes's point, there may be things that like the county and the city end up maybe doing together, because it benefits the county residents as a whole. In the terms of public safety, this committee will see a lot of that. There's a lot of crossover between what happens in the county in terms of funding these operations and the public safety issue in the city of Kankakee. And that really had manifests in Hopkins Park as well, where we are the police force, however limited that is at this point. So when we go through this process, the first thing this committee will do will be to look at policy that supports all of the different projects that we think will address that. And then that will spur the thought of, well, what else? What are we missing? What are the connections? We'll purposefully reach out to these other municipalities, because shared money is better than it all paid for by one or the other, because we both would benefit, both in the human cost and the financial cost of a criminal justice system that is really overburdened. So, you know, in that aspect, the board members would be making those policy decisions. We'll pass those policy decisions up to the full executive committee, these subcommittees. The board members will vote on it. Citizens can't vote, but they can help design those policies that will go up to the next level. Once that's approved, then we can bring people back in to talk about their specific projects. And at that point, we'll have to have the documentation we need to be able to say this is a viable project. It has the right kind of outcomes that we want, because really we're the grantor. So we're the ones who are going to require, is this working? Just like every other grant that's written, you have metrics that you have to be accountable for. So it's just not, here's a bunch of money and, you know, well, we want to know if that money's working. Because ultimately we have a policy. I'm sorry, I can't, Bill. This is not like that. I'm sorry. It's a subcommittee, so I can't have public involvement beyond that. But save it for after the meeting or for the next one, sorry. So I hope that makes sense, the process. We need to come up with policy, and we have some suggestions on policy that seem to be what everybody was talking about from a board member perspective on how to utilize these funds. How are we gonna respond? Well, we need to respond, in this case, to the pandemic and for public safety and for emergency management, and with certain things that we knew there were gaps. Also things that we had problems with before that were made worse by COVID that aren't going away. And then there's also the blue sky aspect of, well, infrastructure wise, what else do we need to make this things better for everybody? So that gets kicked to the basically the reinvestment committee once it comes out of here. So again, policy first, project second. And to one of the speaker's points, there are things that may need to be addressed in an expedited fashion. And then there's some things that we can talk about and make sure we're on point with for a longer period of time. But both will require the same type of documentation. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. I just want to go through that a little bit. So we also we have a launch document. It'll be put on the website if it's not already there. It has mission statements involved. You know, you're talking about, you know, I'll just read it. The Kankakee County Respond, Revitalize, and Reinvest funds will be allocated for qualified businesses, not-for-profit entities, projects, or direct to individuals based on the ARPA rules, location, need, impact, and equity. Considering municipalities receive their own allocations, the county is going to focus on the rural areas of the county, county infrastructure, and areas within the county lacking the resources and or infrastructure to mitigate the current and potential future pathogen emergency related issues. The overarching principles that will guide the process and deployment of funds will consider the following. And again, additional policies may come up, but this is what these meetings today were to adopt the initial groundwork policies, and then others will follow as we start to identify, because we can't know everything up front. This has to be fluid, and it's 3 years long. I hope we're not meeting in committees every 2 weeks for 3 years, please. But at some point, we may have to say, get the band back together to get, you know, there's a new project that's come on our plate. And so by the end of the day, I'll have this a lot better. So if you're here at 3:30, I'll probably be doing a much better job at this. So the first one is as practicable, and it's all in this policy or this document that we put out on Friday. Deploy 2 years of ARPA funds on initiatives that have a long-term impact, 10 to 20 years. So we're looking for policies and then projects that support that policy as practicable, you know, because not everything fits into this, but how do we take advantage of this money, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Well, the best thing to do is to have an impact that lasts a long time. And I don't think we can do that alone. I think we need other municipalities to join in on some of these things. Where applicable, utilize special internal funds before ARPA funds. It just makes sense if we're already collecting fees and fines internally for certain things that we should use that money first and then go to ARPA funds and not just sit on that money internally. That would be wholly unfair. And that's my own opinion, but that's things that the committees will vote on. Access grant funds instead of ARPA funds when possible. There's so much grant money available out there through all different facets of business, workforce, and anything we set up here will, as much as we possibly can, we'll research that and say, there's a grant for this. Did you apply for it? I don't think it's a good use of money, of the ARPA money, to just hand it over to businesses or individuals who didn't go that route first. If you were turned down, if you were ineligible, we're here to help. But if you didn't try, I think we should talk about why that was. Because the economic development money and the workforce money is exponential to what we got here. And it's competitive, it's nationwide, but it's real, it's there. I have a call with Robin Kelly's office in the EDA to find out what's behind that curtain when the EDA releases all those workforce development and economic development dollars. So that's more to come on that. Identify and support communities that were unable, ineligible to participate in the CURES, PPP, and CARES programs. Build a consensus for regional projects, solicit public involvement, deliver the same exceptional transparency exemplified by all other Kankakee County administration processes. So that's the way we manage the money, the openness and the transparency on where you're going to be able to see where it's being spent. As something is allocated, I can envision the new web setup that we're going to have is going to, okay, well, now we've allocated this and where's it going? So that full transparency, and then what are the things that we're going to hold people accountable for on the measures if we adopt a policy that says we want to do X. Well, what's the success of X mean to us? And what does their industry say that number is? It's not just us making something up. If I'm trying to think of something that's not related to a request we have already, and it's hard because we've gotten a lot of requests. Just for anonymity's sake, I can't think of something right now, but if in fact there is something out there and we want to guide people through the process, that's why we want to try to hire a grant writer, which is proven to be next to impossible at this point because those folks are making a lot of money elsewhere. That's the hottest job I think we have on the planet is grant writer in the United States. So But beyond that, I guess that's kind of the overall process. So again, starts here with policy. Then once the policy's adopted, hopefully at the next executive committee meeting, then we could start digging into project-based, and then we also have to have the forms and things that people need to fill out and the information we need, because ultimately, if the money is mismanaged by someone that we give resources to, a grantee, if you will, the county has to pay it back. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna require those entities to pay it back to us. And they have to be certified GATA and those types of processes and have dealt with grants before in order for us, I think, to be able to do business, if you will. Now, there's some things that are just one-off grants, like to a fire protection district or a park district that needs PPE. But there's other things that are much more involved that are true programs that require accountability. And I hope that makes sense. So, any questions from any committee members to this point?
None.
Okay, and all board members, yeah, I just want to make sure. Like in the case of the effluent pumps, that's concerning. That might even be a health department issue. John, I don't know if you guys have talked, but you know, it being in the ditch seems like it's an issue. We'll have to address that outside of this room, but it should be addressed. And I don't know if you've talked with the village yet. They got 70,000. I'd be willing, I'm sure the board would be willing to partner with the village if they were so inclined to work with us on that too, because their residents are served. And that's the kind of mentality I'm asking the board to have, is if it's within the footprint of a municipality, we need partnerships. It's not up to us to take care of the municipality's spend or potential spend. Now, if there's a system road that goes through, I mean a county road, you know, something that we're obliged to maintain, I think the county should step up and fix that problem. But if it's something that is totally within a municipality, then I think that should be on the municipality. The board can make the decision. If they wanted to go down that road, no pun intended, they can do it. But it's just, I'm trying to make recommendations saying other people got money too. It's not as much as we got, and maybe we're the 80 and they're the 20. On most grants, there's an 80-20, as Bill knows, and others. So, but we got to talk about all this. I just can't make the call. I have suggestions. Sure. Yes, sir. 12.
I just wanted to speak on that issue from Mr. Bay. The pumps that he's talking about is under the control of the township, not the village.
All right. So, and a question that, so this is a township situation. Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll definitely talk more. Got to make sure that we work with the assistant state's attorney on this as well. But have you know how much, does the township know how much it would cost to fix those?
We're getting the estimation right now of the price.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, more to come. And we'll have those answers by the next meeting in 2 weeks. Okay. Because we can't kick things from here over to the finance committee if we think it's like an emergency, if you will. Mm-hmm. Or a good example would be Dan's voting machines. We found out that we could use ARPA money for the voting machines, just as we found out we can't support the voting machines. The software's not being supported anymore. So we circumvented, if you will, this process because it didn't exist yet, and threw it right to the full county board saying, do you authorize the allocation of these funds for the voting machines? Mm-hmm. We can do similar.
Right.
We just have to get the facts. So, any other thoughts? Anything I'm missing?
No.
Is Jasmine in here? So she's been working on this. You know what I do? I got to mention something. You have Jasmine Humble, Kelly Bilak, Anita Speckman. There she is. Thank you all so much. Steve McCarty put together this part in here about how we're segregating the funds within the county. You know, to make sure that everything is separate in the budgets, the money's not commingled, if you will, to figure out, you know, well, how much of this budget went to this and how much went to that. Thank everybody who's been working on this behind the scenes, because Friday was a fire drill trying to get all this done. With that, I guess we could probably move on. We've talked about, you know, here's the other thing, hard stop at an hour. All these committee meetings will stop at an hour. And we'll just recess until the next one. So it'll be motion to recess here. We can't even really vote on it to recess because we don't have enough people to vote. So this will just basically end, I believe, at that time. But the reason is because we got all these meetings all day. We have to go from one to the next, or else we'd be meeting all week. And I don't think that works for anybody. So do you have questions, Mr. Chairman Pro Tem?
No, not right now.
Not right now? Okay. It's a lot, and it's all new. It's a box of chocolates. I mean, you never know what you're getting with COVID, and it really is. Every day was new the past year and a half. This is way new for us. So the call is out there to the people. So if you have an idea for public safety or something along those lines, come. Public comment is perfect. If you are a public safety professional and you want to be on this committee as a subject matter expert, please come. Maybe the chiefs pick someone to represent them here. I'm sure we'll see the sheriff in 2 weeks because he had some things that he was looking for. Mr. Gessner is here today. There's some stuff in the packet, and that's in there just so you can familiarize yourselves with what people are asking for. There's some things beyond our mission statements and the statistics on what happened with COVID the last year and a half. Thanks everybody, especially the coroner's office, for helping us out with that. The committee structure, how we're segregating the money. This is just a launch document, I'd like to call this. It's sitting on the back here too. It'll be online. But in the future, there'll be updates on this. At the end, there'll be, well, what did we do and did it work? You have to look in the mirror at some point. But then there's applications in your packet of what people would fill out if they want to be on these committees, what the structure is. Excuse me. Apologize, too much coffee. Also some articles in there from the Brookings Institute. It's something I've been doing a lot of reading with. It's a think tank that looks at public policy, especially in the area of equity. When we start looking at these things, we need to make sure we're touching all bases, and there's really good information in those articles. So for what's in this little binder here, not little, it's a big binder, it's gonna get bigger. It's the rules, it's what we have, the guidelines we have to, follow, the type of reporting that we have. This is not just free money to throw around. There's a lot of strings attached, and in some cases, they're wire cables with, latches and hooks and locks and all kinds of stuff. They don't make it easy on some things. So anyway, the FAQs are in there. There's a lot of good questions that have come up. There's also the calculator that we used from the, it's the revenue replacement calculator from the, it's not just Illinois, I think it's GFOA National. Yeah, it's the government finance and what? Accounting executives? Finance officers, there you go. No accounting. Sorry, too soon. So that it is something that we could base our decision on that's empirical. It's not just us. It's not the way we're doing it, it's the way that the finance officers around the United States are justifying lost revenue versus direct COVID money. So there's different things that can happen in that auspice. There's a few press releases in there. And then obviously you can add to this. We're gonna have a hole punch sitting in the back at the end of every meeting. And then from that point on, you can just punch it in there and throw it right in the binder and you've got it with you. So we're trying to make it as easy for the board members as possible, because this is a lot of intensive work that's coming down the pike. And then, as they say, the committee may take a nap for a while, because then it's moved over to finance, it's funded and ranked, and there's nothing here in front of us to really act on. But if something comes up, then we'll reassemble and start moving forward. So a marathon, not a sprint. I just want to keep mentioning that. So we have 3 years. But there's some things, I should say, that we need to make decisions on now that would basically be spent in 3 years if it is an infrastructure project. So I don't want to give a false sense of like, oh, I can just take it easy. There's some things that'll be front burner for a little while. So I think that's about it for right now, unless we're not going to be able to vote on anything. So I would just say that if you know somebody, tell them to come down here. If you're part of that community, public safety, the next meeting here at, here, I'll go ahead and read them out here just in case anybody's watching. Public safety's over at 10 o'clock here. 10:15 we have the other committee, which is just a mixed bag. If it's not under courts or workforce or big infrastructure projects, that might be the committee to come to, is the other committee, which is at 10:15 to 11:15 every other Monday. So if you don't know where you fit in and you have an idea, that's the day to come. You know, and that other committee is, it could get, again, whittled down to no projects or no policy or anything. And then we kind of wait until we have one to be able to talk about it. So people who have those projects will have to obviously come in and discuss it and what they're talking about, what their outcomes are, all of those different things when the time comes, and we'll communicate with them ahead of time. So those folks who have sent us things, they'll know when to come in to talk about their particular ask, if you will. And we don't necessarily have to decide that meeting. It could be like, we'd like to know this and we'd like to know that, and we need this form filled out and we need that, and we need to see, you know, tax returns and that. I mean, all this is part of what we have to dive in or jump through when we apply for grants. So it shouldn't be a surprise, I would think. 11:30 is to 12:30 is the courts response group. And the 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock is the workforce revitalization. We already have Dr. Battle, LaDonna, or from KCC, excuse me, LaDonna Russell from the Workforce Board, Mary Posing from KCC Workforce, and Theodis Pace from NAACP are on the workforce as it stands right now. But that doesn't mean we couldn't have Career Center, anybody that's connected with workforce development in that area. I thought I heard something, yeah, I think it was from the gentleman that works with the other fire districts. That might be a workforce thing where we can go for a grant. That's what I'm trying to get people to think about. If we could get an 80-20 match, I can't be the 20 because ARPA money can't be the local match on federal. Maybe there's something out there for the state, you know. So that's where we need to talk and really engage on that side of things. I use an example, like when I met with the black pastors, one of the comments was, can we use COVID money to clean up the north side of Kankakee? There's garbage all over the place, you know, there's stuff in the alleys, you know, we need to beautify the area. And I thought, well, no, not directly. But if we did something and tied it to workforce, almost like work study, you work in the morning, you get paid to pick up the garbage, but in the afternoon, you have a scholarship funded by maybe the county and maybe the city to go get a CDL. That's a job. That's recession proof. So then you could use COVID money for those types of things. But that probably I would venture to say we'd run that through the workforce board to manage, because they manage grants and programs. We don't. We're not going to set up a public aid office at the county, and we're not going to, you know, have all this infrastructure to do all this stuff. We're going to look for partners in the community that have done it and know how to manage it and produce the documentation and accountability required for us to partner with. It's probably the best way I can talk about this. So, any other questions, thoughts, board members, anything?
The infrastructure meeting, is that the one would that be under reinvest?
Yes, reinvest is 215 to 315. That's infrastructure. Overarching projects that may connect workforce to substance abuse to mental health. That's kind of the one seeding idea that I've thrown in there, because that whole is those of us who've worked in that or, you know, managed in that area. It's there's a lot of blue sky there for connections between different groups that are doing little pieces of everything. How do you fix that continuum? You know, so that's one of the ideas. We just don't know how, because we're not in that area every day, all day. And then revitalize the business one is from 3:30 to 4:30. So again, all board members can come to any meeting. There are no bad ideas. There are ideas that may not be legal in terms of using ARPA money. And so we'll have to vet those out. But, you know, Kelly is keeping a list, and that list will not go away. It just may get prioritized further down the list based on what the board does. And so I just want to mention that. We're not dismissing anybody's ideas. We're going to keep that list. At some point, they'll be up there on the screen. At some point, they'll get ranked because there will be a red line. When you run out of money, that's the red line. You know, we won't be able to fund this stuff after 3 years. That should be the over, like, there won't be something there to pick up the county's end of it when we're gone. So I would venture to say figure out a funding mechanism suggest to figure out a funding mechanism after we're out of the picture. because I don't know if the county board would be or wouldn't be interested in something that is 3 and done. We're looking for long-term sustainability. With that,
Which committee does parks go to? Like if they had reimbursements?
that was
put into-
other, I believe.
Okay.
And let me take a look at that. I'll make sure because I've got it. Yeah. Like right now I've got like animal rescue type related things under the other of the internal offices that didn't fit into public safety, like the clerk and the recorder, planning. I have something from KCCSI, you know, so all that's public record, but you know, Fortitude, Mr. Howard, you know, there's all different kinds of ones that are in the other basket. And we may find at some point that other became something else, and we'll just move that off into another area and create that new subcommittee.
Okay.
So, trying to build flexibility into something that is evolving. I mean, we still don't have all the rules. It's amazing. They continually interpret the rules. What was one that I saw the other day? It was Ohio won a federal lawsuit on there's a provision that you can't offset in tax revenue, so you can't reduce taxes and use this money to reduce taxes. The Fed that was kicked out by the federal courts, saying that was unconstitutional. But that's only for states. That doesn't apply for counties. It's a whole different set of, it's not even close to being the same set of rules. So that ruling only affects states. We wouldn't, you know, there has to be a balance, but you know, I don't know if Ohio is just not going to spend any of their money on their residents who really need help. But that in and of itself was deemed unconstitutional. So that was just what, 2-3 weeks ago. That's evolving. Doesn't apply to us, but it applies to the state of Illinois. So they could, I don't see state of Illinois reducing our taxes anytime soon, just the opposite, but that's just, you know, that's an editorial more than anything else. All right, well then I guess we're at 9:52. We gotta kind of hit the road unless anybody's got something else.
Just so the public knows that there are subcommittee packets in the back, so you can go ahead and grab those off the table back there.
Yeah, I think it's the
just
the schedule. The schedule sitting back. It's right over here. So, all right. Well, thanks for your time. I guess we'll stand in recess.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
All right. Stay in recess.